how are you? How are you doing? We are going to be going over my January wrap-up, okay? Let me pull up Storygraph. If you don't use Storygraph, then where are you getting your stats? Because that's all I use it for, is literally just stats for the month. So we will move on over so we can pop up our statistics here. Let's get into January. On here it does say that I read 18 books. I technically read 17 and a half books because I did DNF a book 50% of the way through, and I also just DNF'd a book after one chapter. So we had 2 DNFs this month, but the book that I read 50% of, I am counting it as read because I spent hours on that bullshit, okay? So the 18 books equals 6,572 pages. Moods of the month. We had 9 books in the brown mysterious category, 8 in the purple tense category, 8 in the emotional orange, 7 in the gray dark, 5 in the pink lighthearted, 3 in the teal hopeful, 2 in the blue sad, 2 in the red funny, and 2 in the green adventurous. Pacing. 50% of the books that we read were a medium pace. We had 44% at a fast pace and 6% at a slow pace. Page number, we read 72% of our books were between 300 and 499 pages, with 22% being under 300 pages and 6% being over 500, and we read 100% fiction this month. Then we'll move into our genres. We read 8 thrillers. Some books are classified as multiple genres, so the reason that this doesn't add up to the amount of books we read. So 8 thriller, 6 romance, 5 of both mystery and contemporary, 4 YA, 3 horror, and then 1 of each of the following: LGBTQIA+, manga, literary, and fantasy. And my average rating was a 3.78, which I think is pretty good. And with that, we are just gonna jump right on in. We will go in order of everything I read. The first book I read this month was All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I did not read this in any reading vlog, so I'll give you all my thoughts right now. Basically, I had no intention of reading this book, and now I want to read every book Mariana Zapata has written. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm getting the vibes that her books are being like getting new covers and being republished like more traditionally instead of independently, because this one, and I also have, it's like over there in my to be hauled pile, The Wall of Winnipeg in Me, and they are in these cute cartoony covers where like a bunch of her other books, like Culty I think is a very popular one, has like the ugly cover. So I'll probably wait to purchase them until they are like these cute covers. But anywho, basically my best friend and I were at Half Price Books, and we decided we were going to play a game to determine our first read of the year. We were going to pick a section of the store, whether it was horror, fantasy, romance, whatever. We ended up both just picking new releases. And we closed our eyes like this, picked a book, and that was the book we would pick, with 2 caveats. We got 1 veto, and if we picked a book that was like 3rd in the series, we would have to find book 1, and then if they didn't have book 1, we could pick again. I picked books in the middle of a series that they didn't have the first book of twice, and then I picked All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata and Heather McLary. She has been raving about this book, so I was very excited to pick it up. And in this book, we have our main character, Aurora, and she is moving back to like the town that she and her mom grew up in Colorado, and she is renting an apartment above this family's garage. Little does she know that she's renting it from the owner's son, and he was not aware that this was going to be happening, and he is not happy about it, but he reluctantly lets Aurora stay, and she's discovering a lot about herself after leaving a really bad relationship and dealing with her mom passing away, which, as somebody part of the Dead Mom Club, I loved that aspect of the book. This book had me swooning. I think like on my Kindle I have like 30 highlights. It's crazy. I can't wait to like move them into this book, and I gave this 5 stars. That's the way we want to start the year. 5 stars for the first book. The second book I read was The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead, and this book does have trigger warnings right in the beginning. Suicide, rape, physical violence, sexual violence, trauma, self-harm, misogyny, gender essentialism, and drug use. Take them very, 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 very seriously. This was my January book club pick, and I got this as a recommendation from a reel of like books about cults. And in this book, we have our main character, Shay, and she and her friends, was it college? Her college friends were all basically, her and her two best friends, what were their names? I'm like horrible at remembering names, if I'm being honest with you. I don't remember. Clementine and, why do I want to say it's like Alexis or something? Nicole, Laurel. Shay, Clementine, and Laurel. Those are the girls. So basically, they're all bestie pals in college, and they need an extra person to share like their room situation with. I went to online college, I don't really know, but they needed one extra person. They had this girl from like one of their classes join them, and then one day they go out to eat with her father, and he basically like sucks them into a cult, and it's basically all about that. And Shay is now living in Texas, and she has her own life, but she is being pulled back to New York by a podcast host to discover what's really going on, because one of the girls has passed away. Two of the girls have passed away, and they both are being deemed suicide, but there's some suspicions. It was very good. I gave it 5 stars, and there's a full spoiler vlog up on the channel about that book. Next, we move into 2 books that were in my continuing series that I'm in the middle of vlog, which one of the books I read at the end of last year, and then we read Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is book 2 in the Natural series. I won't go too deep into what this is about because I do not want to give anything away from the prior books, and there is a lot of like, it's not interconnected standalones. It's a series you have to read in order. But basically in book 1, you are introduced to this world of the Naturals, where it is these group of high schoolers who have abilities that will help the FBI. It's basically, in the back of this, Miss Allie Carter said, "The Naturals is criminal minds for the YA world," and I loved every page. And that's basically what it is. We have our main character, Cassie, and she is a profiler, as well as another character named Dean. We have Michael, who can read lies. We have Leah, who is an expert liar and can detect lies. Michael can read emotion. I think I gave him the wrong thing. He can read emotion. And Sloane is like the Spencer Reed, eidetic memory, knows everything person. And this is book 2. They're continuing their work with the Naturals program, and yeah, basically I don't want to say anything because I don't want to give anything away, but this was a 4-star read for me. I do always find the Naturals books feel a little bit too long, so I have not given any of them 5 stars. Then we moved into Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter, and I'm sorry for the glare. I'm filming this later in the evening, so I have to have the ring light on, but this is the Barnes & Noble edition. I think it is way prettier than the regular like purple and yellow. I don't like the yellow on the other one. Anywho, this is book 2 after Better Than the Movies. This is Nothing Like the Movies, and we are continuing on with our main characters of Liz and Wes. And they are in college now. They have broken up for a reason we don't know about. They have spent some time apart, and now they're back on the same campus, and can they make it work for the second time? This book, I'm saying this with love in my heart, and I don't mean anything super mean about it, but it felt like a money grab, okay? This story did not need to happen. Liz and Wes had their happily ever after. We did not need to make some additional issue, because in Better Than the Movies, they already had their like 3rd act conflict. We already had that. And this whole book just felt like an extended 3rd act conflict that went on for like over 400 pages, 430 pages. It was so long, it was so boring, and it was so unnecessary. I gave it 3 stars because I do love these characters, but like, I don't recommend this book. Just should have let it lie. We didn't need it, and I'm sorry if you disagree. What did we read next? Oh yes, next I started reading horror books for a horror vlog. And the first book I read was Baby Teeth by Zoya Stage. I'm pretty sure that's how you say her name, Z-O-J-E. If you are, I believe, Swedish, please let me know. They made a lot of talk in this book about their last name being J-E-N-S-E-N, but pronounced Jensen, so I think it's Zoya? One of the two. But in this book, it's a dual point of view. We have the mom, Suzette, and the daughter, Hannah. And Hannah doesn't speak. She is 7 years old, and she has never spoken out loud. And the mom, Suzette, like, is taking her to doctors to try to figure out if there's something, like, physically wrong with her, mentally wrong with her, a reason why she is not speaking. And they come to the conclusion that there is no reason. She is just choosing not to. Hannah hates her mother. She only likes her dad, and she just wants her mother out of the picture. And Suzette is starting to kind of get the picture of that Hannah is just kind of crazy. Not crazy, that Hannah has some underlying issues, okay? And so she's getting her into therapy and is getting her into, like, a special school for, like, kids who have some emotional disturbances and stuff like that. And Hannah is just doing everything she can to get kicked out of school, to cause issues, X, Y, Z. Until it says right on here on the back that she's going to try to get rid of her mother for good. This book was very interesting. It's quite short, and I gave it 3 stars. The reason I did not rate it any higher, we'll get into it. 2 big reasons. 1, in this book, Suzette has Crohn's disease, which I think books discussing invisible illnesses and illnesses that are not commonly talked about is very important. But I don't think I need 50% of her chapters in a horror book to be about her Crohn's disease. It didn't add anything to the story, and it felt unnecessary in this context. And then in this book, Hannah is 7 years old, and the things Hannah is doing as a 7-year-old don't seem plausible for a 7-year-old. She seemed like she would be at least 11, 12, 13. If she had been aged up a little bit, I think that her actions and the way her mind worked and the things that she was able to comprehend would feel more believable. But as it stands as a 7-year-old, like, I know 7-year-olds, and I'm like, I don't think they could come up with that. So with that, I did give that book 3 stars. Then I read this book, also for my horror vlog, and that is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. This was picked in my TBR, where my husband picked my TBR, and it was a book from his bookshelf. He only gave this 3 stars, so I'm not really super sure why he decided this is what we were reading. But this was a bad introduction to Stephen King. I own The Shining, and if I don't like that, then I'm not going to keep trying with this author. I feel like I don't need to talk too much about this book. I feel like everybody knows what it is about. It is about Lewis, and he takes a job and moves his family to this town in Maine. He becomes friends with the neighbors, and back behind their house is this pet cemetery, and it doesn't really say much on the back, so I don't really, like, want to delve too much into it, but, like, it was so boring. Nothing about this book was scary. I did not get the chills. I was not spooked. I was not startled. Every single thing that happened, I guessed from a mile away. Like, it was just not good. I gave it 2 stars. I don't recommend. And if this wasn't my husband's book, I would be unhauling it. I did tab it so that I could remember, like, what things I wanted to, like, talk to him about while I was reading it, but no. And the last book I read for that video was The Stillwater Girls, I believe, for the horror video. Yes, by Minka Kent, and I really enjoyed this book. This book is about our 3 sisters, Ren, Sage, and Evie, and they basically are raised in isolation off the grid in a cabin in the woods with their mother. One, like, summer, Evie gets quite sick, and her mom has to take her to a doctor to get medicine because she's, like, about to die, basically. And they don't speak to the outside world. The mom has, like, somebody who comes and brings them supplies, but the girls do not see anybody else. They are locked in this cabin. They take care of their crops, they take care of their livestock, and that is their life. Until her mom goes and takes Evie and does not come back. Now it's like winter time, the livestock is dying and they don't know why. They are out of food and they're in trouble. When a man knocks on their door and is like, I'm looking for your mom, they are startled, and so they run away in the middle of the night. They run through the woods until they find what their mother has been hiding from them this entire time. And it was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. What else did I read? Oh, yes. Okay. For my finishing my TBR vlog, I read Falling by TJ Newman, and this book is a very good. I gave it 4 stars. This is about a captain on a flight, and he leaves in the morning, says goodbye to his family, gets on the flight, and when he gets on the flight, he gets an email, I think, that basically his family is being held hostage, and he has 2 options: either crash the plane or his whole family is going to be killed. And it's about what he does in that situation, and I don't want to give anything away, but I gave that 4 stars. Also in that video, as well as this book was touched upon, both of these were actually my 2 DNFs. We did not do good at finishing that TBR. Actually, no, I lied. Stillwater Girls was part of my finishing my TBR video, if you're interested. The next book was in my horror video, and that is Hunted by Darcy Coates. This book is long. It is over 400 pages, 450 pages, and I got to about halfway before I DNF'd it. This book is about Eileen. She goes missing in a forest in like Australia, I believe. Her camera is discovered in the river, and there are some like weird clues in the pictures. And then her brother and his friends go to look for her. That is what the description is on the back, and after reading 200 pages of it, that was all that happened. So I swiftly DNF'd that. And then the last book for my finishing my TBR video was book 1 of Zodiac Academy. I read chapter 1 of this on an airplane to Disney World, and I just like, okay. So I originally picked this up because of Larry Reed's and her obsession with it. I don't read fantasy, as you can see by these books. I don't read fantasy, okay? Not a fan. And then I watched the video where her mother read these, and they both loved it, but from the way her mom was talking about it with like the shapeshifters and the werewolves and the bullying, I just know I'm not gonna like it, and I'm just not in a position where I'm gonna force myself to read something I know I'm not gonna like. So we're saying goodbye to Zodiac Academy, and we're not trying it. We're not doing it. We're just not. Then I don't know if it's, I don't know, it is up because it's going up. It's already scheduled. So my 24-hour reading challenge, we did start by reading Hunter x Hunter Volume 1. If you are unfamiliar with this manga, it is about our main character here, Gon. And basically in this like fictional world, there are these things called hunters, and they track down treasures, magical beasts, and like criminals. And his dad is a hunter, and he wants to be a hunter just like his dad, so he enrolls in the hunter exam. And book 1 is just a couple of the like part of the, well, the beginning part of the hunter exam. 5 stars, love it. It's also my favorite anime. Then after that, I did start reading Hunted in that video, and then I DNF'd that, and we read, this is all in a very weird order. I did read The X by Frida McFadden, and this was a 3-star, and it was honestly a 4-star until the epilogue, and the epilogue was, I think, the worst epilogue I've ever read in my entire life, that I deducted an entire star from it. In this, we have our main character, Cassie, and she thinks that she's dating the perfect guy. She knows about his like perfect, amazing ex-girlfriend, Francesca, but she thinks Francesca's out of the picture. And then the back says, think again, Cassie. This book was so interesting and so good. I loved the twist. And then the epilogue pretty much like undid the twist, and it was just so stupid. So because of that, I gave it 3 stars. I'm getting a little confused with what goes with what video now. Okay. We're just gonna do it. Okay, so we have All In by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This was in my 24-hour reading challenge. Again, copy paste everything I said about the second Naturals book. I'm not going to go too deep into what it's about because I don't want to give anything away, but it was so good. I gave it 4 stars. This has been my favorite one so far. Then I read You've Reached Sam by Dustin Tao, and this is about our main character, Julie, and Julie's boyfriend, Sam, has passed away right before high school graduation, and she is heartbroken about it. She like hasn't been able to bring herself to go to his services, to visit his grave, do any of it. People are very judgmental towards her for it, being like, you don't care about him, that's why you're not showing up. And one day she decides to call his phone just to hear his voice on his voicemail, but the thing is that he picks up. And every time she calls, he picks up and somehow she's talking to him. It is magical realism. It is very sad, and I gave it 4 stars. Then while I was in Disney, I did read this book, which is called Before You Found Me by Brooke Bayfuss. And basically, I stole this copy from my sister's girlfriend, Brooke. But I bought her a new copy. It's because I don't know if you guys can tell, I got pen on it from it being in my backpack, and I didn't want to return a shitty book to her. Any hoodly doodle. This book, look up the trigger warnings. I don't know if they're in the beginning. Let me see if they are. If they are, I will list them for you. Domestic violence, child abuse, child abandonment, traumatic injury, traumatic death, and emotional distress. So if any of those things are triggers, I don't recommend. But in this book, I did give it 5 stars. 5 stars. We had 3 5 stars this month, which is, no, 4 5 stars. Oh my god. So good, so good. Okay, so in this book, we have our main character, Rowan. I had to make a mental shift because in my head I associate that with a male character, but Rowan is a female character. We have our main character, Rowan, and she basically runs away from her life after having an explosive situation happen with her abusive fiance, and now she's taking refuge in a New England town. I'm just looking at the back because I don't want to say any spoilers. And in this town, she meets Gabriel. He is an 11-year-old of the next door neighbor, and he is he's got a lot of bruises on him, and he won't leave the house. He only speaks to Rowan through the basement window, and she learns that he's being held captive in the basement by his dad for the past 3 years, and she essentially kidnaps him, and they're on the run, and it's about their life together and them both coming from very horrible situations and coming together and growing from it. So emotional, so good. 5 stars. Definitely recommend if the triggers are something you can handle. But obviously take care of yourself first. Then I read The Little Italian Hotel by Phaedra Patrick. This is about our main character, Ginny, and she is a radio host, and hold on, my camera's gonna cut me off. This is about Ginny. She is a radio host, and she basically has a talk show with a advice column, essentially. And somebody calls in and is basically well, how well do you know your husband? So she goes home, and she's going to be surprising her husband with this trip to Italy for their anniversary, and he then tells her he wants divorce. She decides to go on the trip anyway because she can't get a refund, and she's going to downgrade to a cheaper hotel and just invite 4 guests who listen to her show can write in and win the trip. They just have to pay for their airfare. So she goes on this trip with these strangers, and it's about all of their stories coming together and them all healing from whatever has happened. It was a 3 star. It was just fine. You know, sometimes they're just fine. Then I followed that up by buddy reading Late Bloomer with my friend Emily, and this book was just everything I needed. I had read a lot of dark, sad, heavy books, so a happy little romance was so needed. In this, we have our main characters, Opal and Pepper. This is a sapphic romance, as you can tell by the cover. They're so cute. And basically, Opal wins the lottery. And with her winnings, she finds on Facebook Marketplace an ad for this flower farm. And she decides she's going to just buy it. So she buys this flower farm, and as she's moving in, some girl approaches her and is like, what are you doing at my house? She's like, oh, this is my house. And basically Pepper lives there, and this whole thing is very confusing. And they decide they're going to be roommates, and they don't really like each other, and they learn to become friends, and is there more? But this has such great representation for lesbians, bisexual, trans, gender fluid, as well as autism. Pepper is autistic, and I think that the representation in this is so good. I've read a couple of other books that don't say that the character is autistic, but it is speculated that they are. And in a lot of books, I feel like autism is represented by every autistic stereotype thrown at a character, whereas this is an autistic character written by an autistic author, because I believe the author is autistic. Yeah, she's neurodiverse. The author is neurodiverse, so I feel like the representation in this was so good, and I highly recommend. Then I'm still filming this video, so I don't know when it'll go up, but these books will be going up in my Reading Blue Books video. First, we read first book in the Eden series, which is called Indigo Ridge, and in this we have our main character, Winslow, or Win for short. She moves to a town called Quincy, Montana, where her family is from. She hasn't lived there for most of her life though, and her grandfather is the mayor, and she got the job as the chief of police, which everybody thinks she got due to nepotism. And they're all kind of treating her like an outsider. Well, on her first night in town, she hooks up with a guy at a bar, and he turns out to be part of this Eden's family, which are like the family that run the town. And she basically is like, oh man, here we go. And everybody just kind of thinks she's a joke until a body is discovered on an Eden property, and she proves to them that she knows what she is doing. And I thought it was very good. I liked the mixture of the romance and the mystery. It kind of, that aspect reminded me of The Things We Never Got Over, the Lucy Score book, with like the mystery romance combo, and I did think it was quite fun. I gave it 4 stars. And then the book I read yesterday, or finished yesterday, because today's February 1st, is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, and wow, what an overhyped book. Do you like this? I gave it a 3. It was fine. It felt, I don't like a well-written book, okay? I like a book that's written dumbed down, because I'm not that smart, okay? This felt like juvenile, but with a lot of spice. I don't know how to describe it. It was not for me. It was just fine. There was some very pivotal things that happened if you read this book towards the end, like the second to last chapter, and I just didn't care when those things happened. I was like, okay, well, I must not like these characters that much if all of these things can happen and I just don't care. And I just didn't care. Okay, I was not a fan. I thought it was whatever. In this, it is about our main character, Archer Hale, and Bree. I don't remember her last name, honestly. And Bree moves to this town because she's running away from some things that have happened, blah, 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 the classic. And she runs into this guy named Archer. He doesn't talk. Bree knows sign language because her dad was deaf. She's able to communicate with him and discovers that he's not just like this nobody person with no brain that the whole town has basically assumed he was because he can't talk. There's so much ableism in this where like everybody in the town didn't give a shit about Archer enough to try to communicate with him, and they just assumed that he couldn't, and that he wasn't smart enough to, and that he didn't have a brain, and that he was not all there. And I just didn't like that. I almost gave it a 2, but then I was like, I mean, like, I liked XYZ, but I gave it a 3. It was fine. Very, very overhyped. And that is it, friends. Those are all of the books we read in January. It was such a good reading month. I hope I can keep up this pace. I know I won't be able to every month of the year, but I'm very happy with everything I was able to accomplish reading-wise this month. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if any of these are favorites of yours, and I'll see you in the next one.